All right, I want to finish up at Parsha Zemor. We have a few points over here, and one of them is, the first one is vital. If you take a look, Perek Chaf Beis, Pasuk Lamed Beis, this is extremely important.
What page?
Page Chaf Beis, Lamed Beis, page 680. Okay, this is extremely important because there's a lot of confusion here. So right at the bottom of page 680, it says, last pasuk. It says you should second to last pasuk. Ushmarta mitzvosai v'asisam asamani Hashem. You should keep my mitzvahs. You should do my mitzvahs. And Rashi says ushmarta means learning it. V'asisa means putting it into action. And then the bottom pasuk says v'lo sechalalu es shem kochi. Do not desecrate my name. V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael. I should be sanctified in the b'nei Yisrael. Ani Hashem mekadishchem. Now, this is the concept of Chilul Hashem and Kiddush Hashem. Now, you've always heard that, right? Oh, what a Kiddush Hashem, what a Kiddush Hashem. And there's a certain confusion here, because Jews always get excited when Jews do something that the Goyim see, wow, what a Kiddush Hashem. And you read all right? The Jews, a Yeshivat Ohr helped the Goy on the street with his car, what a Kiddush Hashem, which it is. It is to a certain extent, it is. But you'll notice the pasuk says, "V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael." The Kiddush Hashem is in among the b'nei Yisrael. That's the biggest Kiddush Hashem. One of the biggest Kiddush Hashem you can make is not to talk during shul, during davening. That's a Kiddush Hashem. Very people forget about that one. One of the biggest Kiddush Hashem you can make is that somebody walks into a base medrash and sees you learning. That's a Kiddush Hashem. People forget about that. Okay? Why is it that we always associate with the Goyim? So Rabbi Victor Miller, in his inimitable manner, who always tells the truth no matter how much it hurts, is that when we do something in front of the non-Jews, it's not a question of, oh wow, I made a Kiddush Hashem. That's not why we're that happy. It's more to show, see, we're not like you. That's really what's on, and it's so true. It's so true. See, we're better than you. That's not what a Kiddush Hashem means. And it is a Kiddush Hashem. When Jews, they had an incident in Canada. There was a bank that got broken into, and somebody rifled 500. What are they called? Where you put your stuff? 500 safety deposit boxes. They cleared out 500. So it turned out it wasn't 500, it was like 493. There were 7 boxes that they didn't get to. So the directors of the bank, I don't know what the insurance policy was, whatever it was, they decided that they have to, they're going to have to compensate the people who had their stuff broken into. The problem is, how are you going to know what was in a safety deposit box? If my safety deposit box, which I don't have, got broken into, and you would ask me what I had in there, you wouldn't believe what I had in there. I had a Rembrandt in there. It's amazing what I would come up with. All right, so the directors of the bank had a problem. How are we going to find out? We're going to start asking people what they had. So they decided they're going to take randomly one of these 7 people who didn't get broken in, and they're going to test them. So they called up a woman, happened to be a frum woman. They said to her, the bank, your safety deposit, she was one of the 7 that didn't get broken into. I think this was in Toronto. And they said, your safety deposit box got broken into, and your stuff got taken. Could you tell us what you had there? And they have the stuff right in front of them because they have her safety deposit box. And she said, well, I had a necklace, and I had 2 sets of earrings, and there's $6,000 in cash. And to the item, she named it. They decided based on that, people are basically honest, and they could call each person on the list and ask them what they had. Something like that along those lines. So it's a big Kiddush Hashem because there's a frum woman who shows that she's honest. It's a Kiddush Hashem. It's certainly a Kiddush Hashem, especially if Jews see it. Then it's a Kiddush Hashem. That the non-Jews see it, it's also a wonderful thing. But that's not the main Kiddush Hashem. Okay, so I want to get this very, very clear. First of all, the Torah says, "V'lo sechalu Hashem kodshi." What's included in Chilul Hashem? The most basic idea of Chilul Hashem, if you take a look at Rashi, "V'lo sechalalu." Rashi says, "Lavor al divorai mezidin." Okay. What does that mean? Mimashba shenamar v'lo sechalalu ma talmud lomar v'nikdashti. What does it mean v'nikdashti? Misor atzmecha. It's the left column of Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom. Give yourself up v'kade and sanctify my name. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about a person who's willing to die rather than do an Avera. Now, What are the rules of giving up your life? The rules are that if an anti-Semite pulls a gun and says, Jew, do this Aveira or I'm going to kill you, the Jew, the halacha is, you do the Aveira, except for the 3 cardinal sins. Idol worship, immorality, and buying retail. Right, those are the 3 things that a Jew will die for. Right, idol worship, immorality, and murder. Right, those 3 things you have to give up your life for. Now, if the anti-Semite pulls a gun and says, "Kill him or I'll kill you," you have to give up your life. The Gemara says a guy came to Rava and he said, "The guy said to me, the head of the mayor of the non-Jewish mayor said, 'Kill Ploni or I'll kill you.' What should I do?" Rava said, "You have to allow yourself to be killed." Because what makes you think your blood is redder than his? Why is your blood redder than his? Right? You're not allowed to go. You can't kill him. You have to give up your life. That's a halacha. Even though we do find in other areas of halacha, for example, if a Talmid Chacham is drowning and a regular Jew is drowning, and you can only save one of them, who do you save? The Talmid Chacham has priority. But that's in a situation where they're both drowning. And not only that, if you're stuck, Rabbi Kiva says if you're in the desert, or for example, you have only enough money to give to one, the charity fund only has enough money to give to one family, and you have a Talmid Chacham say, somebody else, the Talmid Chacham takes the priority. Or if there's one aliyah in the shul, the Talmid Chacham takes the priority. But that's because we're in a situation where you got to choose. But if it's you versus the other guy, that's because down here we have to have a way of functioning. But in the eyes of God, who's better in the eyes of God? That we don't know. What makes it think your blood is redder? Maybe just because he's a Talmid Chacham, but maybe he's only fulfilling 90% of his potential, and the ordinary Jew is fulfilling 95% of his potential. In the eyes of God, he may be bigger. So you have a hierarchy in order for our society to function. You'd have to give up your life. If he pulls out a gun and says, "Take a bite out of the cheeseburger or I'll kill you," then you take a bite. Ask for a side order of fries, and take a bite, right? And okay, now the only time you don't, and it gets a little tricky if he's doing it only because he wants you to break the halacha. So then it gets a little trickier where he's trying, or if it's a time where there is general persecution against the Jewish people. But if you're on your way home from shul on Shabbos and the anti-Semite sitting on his porch drinking a beer and he pulls out a gun and he says, "Hey Jew, mow the lawn." So then you mow the lawn. That's the halacha. But for the 3 cardinal sins, you have to give up your life. Now what happens if a Jew does? What happens if a Jew, the anti-Semite pulls out a gun and says, "Worship the idol or I'm going to kill you"? And the Jew doesn't want to die, so he worships the idol. He's not liable for death penalty because it was under duress. So he's not liable for the death penalty in Beis Din. But it is a chilul Hashem. V'lo sechalalu es shem kati. You've desecrated God's name because you were supposed to have given up your life and you didn't. You can't be faulted and you're not executed in Beis Din because at the end of the day, it was under duress. But that's a chilul Hashem. V'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. I should be saying the Kiddush Hashem is to be willing to die. That is the basic level of a Kiddush Hashem, number 1. There's another level of Chilul Hashem in Kiddush Hashem, and that is behaving in a way that either causes people to criticize Torah and Torah Jews or to praise Torah and Torah Jews. If you do something where people say, "Wow, that's how a Torah Jew, some Jew embezzles," or a Torah Jew talks in shul, and people are upset about it. I had a guy once told me his mother who was anti-religious. He became frum. His mother was kind of anti. She was just more, kind of, not going. She wasn't terribly militant against it, but you could tell her attitude. But she wasn't. So she came to visit him once, and she decided to go to shul. And he was really surprised that his mother's even indicating she's Shabbos morning. She wants to go to shul. Okay, so she goes to shul, and he sits her in the front row of the women's section. And then after shul, he says, "So hey ma, how was it?" She goes, "I heard two guys in the back row of the shul. The entire time they were talking about the Super Bowl. Now your people are no better than ours." Right? That's a chilul Hashem. That's a giant-sized chilul Hashem. Okay, she's looking to pick. If it wouldn't have been that, it would have been something else. She would have probably said, I didn't hear anybody talking about the Super Bowl. Your people are so closed; they don't know anything. There's always something. You can't never win. You can never win. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's a Chil Hashem. Don't give him the excuse. That's what the Torah talks about as a Kiddush Hashem and a Chil Hashem. The Gemara gives an example, by the way. The Gemara says, who was it? Rabbi Yochanan, Rav. In Rav Yochanan. Now listen to what they said. Rav said, if I go into a store, into a meat store, and I buy the meat on credit, that's a Chil Hashem. Hey, a guy gives credit, what's the problem? What's the problem? If Rav would go in, everybody buys on credit. What's the problem? He said, if I buy credit, it's a Chil Hashem. People are probably, why? There's the rabbi. The rabbi's probably getting because he gives a hechsher, so he gets a cut or something. Who knows what people are going to come up with? And Rav said about himself, if I would buy on credit, Rabbi Yochanan said, that if I would walk Daled Amos without my lips moving, reciting Torah or wearing tefillin, that's a Chil Hashem. Ouch. Right? Why? All right. Now listen carefully. This is extremely important. And what about somebody else? What about somebody else who you see? Now, it's like I gave you this example once before. If you walk into a shop, let's say you go into what are these? What do they call submarine sandwiches? They have sub sandwiches where you have 17 cuts of meat or something, whatever they put on there. Every kosher animal known to man makes the supreme sacrifice to appear on your sandwich, right? And so you walk in and you see a couple of guys from Ohr Somayach are eating a sub sandwich. So you got a loaf of bread. It's this long and it's this wide, and the guy opens his mouth almost like a boa constrictor, like a snake swallowing a serpent, and he's negotiating. Anything wrong with it? It's your roommate from Ohr Somayach. Yeah, all right. I've seen him do worse. You'd be all right. At least the stuff's kosher. Right? Now, what if you walked into the sub sandwich? It was Rav Samet, right? Chowing down on a sub sandwich. How would you feel? Right? Or it was one of the biggest, the Gedolei Ador. They said they're chowing down. Why? What's wrong with it? The answer is people create a level for themselves. When you create a level for themselves, it's no different than a person who has a job. When you have a job, the higher your position, the more your salary, but the greater responsibility. So if a company goes bankrupt, who gets tagged? The CEO, not the truck drivers. The CEO of the company is the one who jumps out a window, because he's the one who it's his fault. The truck driver goes and has a Big Mac. He what do I care? He'll get another job. But because the higher your level, you take the responsibility. You created a level for yourself. When you create that level in Torah, it's the same thing. If you've promoted yourself as a person who's always learning, and somebody sees you draying around, wasting time doing something, so then, I don't know if that's, I told you I had a firm guy once, he told me he was in a bar and he was throwing darts. And this lady walks up to him in the bar, she says, "What are you doing in a place like this?" And he's like, "Whoa." The obvious question is, what's a lady like you doing in a place like this? Well, that tells me, all right, we leave her alone. We understand what she's doing in a place like this. What are you doing in a place like this? Right? You're wearing a yarmulke. What are you doing here? And gentlemen, the minute you put on a yarmulke, you've created a level for yourself, especially in Israel, more than in America among the non-Jews. In Israel, where every Jew in Israel is looking at you, you got a yarmulke on, we expect a certain behavior from you. But you don't behave that way. Yeah, but you do. You're making a statement. And you, with your yarmulke, the reward you're going to get for wearing your yarmulke, but we also take on a responsibility. We're expected to behave differently on the buses and on the trains and in public and everywhere else. And if you go off on a bus driver with your yarmulke on, that's a Chil Hashem. And if you say good morning and thank you to a bus driver, that's a Kiddush Hashem. And the secular guy doesn't do it, they don't expect it from the secular guy. But from the religious guy, what kind of behavior is that? I see people sometimes walking on the bus, they're on their phone. As they're walking, they walk right past the bus driver as if he doesn't exist. As if it's a human being over there. But there's a human being on that side. What happened? What happened? Good morning, something. Get off the bus, say thank you. Instead of saying, open a door. So if it's a secular kid, a secular teenager who's cursing him, hey, open the door and slam. Okay, at least the guy's not violent. So Yeshivat Ohr behave like a mensch. You got a responsibility. Okay, that's the basic Chil Hashem, Kiddush Hashem. There was a Mir bus, by the way. The bus, have you ever been to Mir? It's into the buses in Mir. They drive guys in the morning. They pick the Avrechim, the Kurl. They have literally dozens of buses from all neighborhoods coming. So one of these buses had a bus full of Avrechim, Kurl guys. So the bus driver, at a certain point, he stopped, and a cop pulled him over. Apparently, he ran over a line or something. So the bus driver gets off the bus, and the cop he talks to the cop writes him out a ticket. So the bus driver gets back on the bus, and he's livid. Secular, but he's livid. He says, "I give me, for a nitpick, he give me a 250 shekel fine." And he's going on and on. In the meantime, one of the Avrechim gets up on the bus. He turns to the guy next. There are about 50 guys on the bus. You have 5 shekels? You have 5 shekels? Okay. Collected from every Avrech 5. 250 shekels goes up to the bus driver. Here, pay your ticket. Wow. Okay? You ever see an Israeli bus driver speechless? Right? Could you imagine? Why doesn't it happen on buses in Tel Aviv? Why doesn't it happen on buses in Brooklyn? Right? No, it happened on a Mir bus. Why? Because that's the behavior that's expected of us. That's expected. That's a Kiddush Hashem. That's a Kiddush Hashem. I want you to hear what the Rambam says. The Rambam in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Hey Pasuk Yud, and you should see this Rambam. Yesodei HaTorah means Torah fundamentals. It's the 5th chapter, the 10th halacha of the Rambam. The Rambam says, Kol ha'over bidaito, one who transgresses willingly, below ones, without any compulsion. Nobody's compelling you to do it. You just, on your own. You transgress al achas mikol mitzvos amuros b'Torah. You transgress any of the mitzvahs. Bishat nefesh. Bishat nefesh means just nonchalantly, without any compunctions. Lahachis, to antagonize or provoke God. Harezem mechalol es Hashem. As opposed to somebody who transgresses because you've got a desire. It's one thing if listen, I know I shouldn't do it, but I love pepperoni pizza, and I transgress. Okay, it's an avera, but you didn't do it to antagonize God. As opposed to somebody who says, I don't keep Torah. That means you got a choice of 2 pizzas. They look exactly the same. One's kosher, one's not kosher. I'm going to eat the non-kosher one. I don't do kosher. And you're doing it just as a principle, that's a chilul Hashem. Okay, and then the Rambam says, pay attention carefully. V'chein, kol haporesh me'avera, one who avoids doing an avera, or asa mitzvah, you avoided an avera or you did a mitzvah, lo mipnei davar ba'olam, not for any reason, lo pachad, not fear, v'lo yira, not intimidation, v'lo levakesh kavod, and not because of the honor, ela mipnei habore baruch hu, only because Hashem said not to do it. Kimenias Yosef Atzadik Atzmo Meishes Rabo, just like Yosef was tzaddik, for nobody was around, nobody was looking, nobody would have known, and he refrained from the advances of Mrs. Potiphar, simply because Hashem said no. Harei zeh mekadesh es Hashem. That is a Kiddush Hashem, which means every time a person is alone and you avoid doing something, or you do a mitzvah, which means you sat down to eat and you made hamotzi. If you didn't do hamotzi for honor, it's not like anybody's going to go, oh, wow, he made hamotzi. Wow, he's good, right? Nobody, I've heard of women who, by the way, the husband makes the kiddush, the wife makes the hamotzi. It's a feminist thing. The husband makes the kiddush, the husband makes the kiddush on the wine, and the wife is the one who makes the hamotzi on the bread for everybody, right? And I don't understand exactly what are we supposed to, oh, wow, listen to her. Wow, she knows how to make a baracha. Terrific, right? Wonderful. And you go and you make a bracha on your own for no reason, no covet, no nothing. So you get, that's a Kiddush Hashem. You put on tzitzis in the morning. Anybody give you applause for putting on tzitzis? You put on tefillin today. You made a bracha, you benched. It's a Kiddush Hashem. Why? You're doing it only because Hashem said so. If you're doing it for honor, something else. It's still a mitzvah. It's not a Kiddush Hashem. According to the Rambam, it's a Kiddush Hashem. So we're making Kiddush Hashems everywhere we go where there's a Kiddush Hashem. And that's a person has to know, that's what a Kiddush Hashem is. It's not what people think that, now when it comes to Chil Hashem, a Chil Hashem is behaving in a way that you shouldn't. That I was once a terrible. I felt horrible. It was one of the worst things. I was at I was on an Ohr Somayach, a 3-day hike somewhere. Which itself was enough to make me feel terrible. But we were at a bus stop. When we went to this restaurant, we had been on a hike. My shoes were muddy, and we go into the bus. One of these bus stops. You go in and you get some drinks, whatever it was. So I walked out, and my shoes were muddy, and completely unintentionally, there's a wall, and so I started cleaning my boots off on this wall. There had been like bushes and trees, And some soldier, guy comes over, he says to me, he starts swearing, he started blaspheming his strength. He says, look what you're doing. What happened? The wall was, I didn't see it. This was an extension, the outside wall of this restaurant, of this shop. So I'm wiping my boots off on this thing. I didn't know. I thought it was an abandoned. It looked to me like an abandoned supply hut or something. I really wasn't going to. I don't wipe my boots on walls normally, except when I'm at home. So I don't. What he calls So I'm not. I felt terrible. The guy was I felt terrible. He said, you and your religion and your God. And then he went on. I said, what can I do? Okay, I didn't do it intentionally, but it's still. You're still accountable. Should have been more careful. I'm accountable. So that's a chil Hashem. It's an unintentional chil Hashem, but it's a chil Hashem. So sometimes a person has to know that our behavior in public, sometimes it's a tremendous gift. You can make a Kiddush Hashem. If you get up for an old lady on the bus, you should know. If you're on a bus and you get up for an old lady, and she could be 97 years old and on a respirator, and anybody would do it, right? Anybody would do it. But you did it with your yarmulke, that's a Kiddush Hashem. Because people don't just say, well, you got up. They say a frum guy got up. And if you don't get up on the bus when you should, that's a chil Hashem. Because people, when I told you, when I was in Kolol, the head of the Rosh Kolol, Rav Shekovitsky Zichron Levrach, he told us that if we're on a bus and there's anybody on the bus is standing, we shouldn't be sitting. Because the secular guy is going to look around the bus and he's going to say, why is the frum guy sitting? He's not going to say, why is the secular guy sitting? Why is the frum guy sitting and I'm standing? And we carry a responsibility. That's the fact, that we carry a responsibility. Okay. Okay, let's go on to, okay, let's go on. First of all, we have in Perek Chaf Gimmel, no. Where are we here? Okay, Perek Chaf Gimmel Pasuk Yud, and this is the period that we're in right now. Perek Chaf Gimmel Pasuk Yud. Now, this is one of the great misconceptions of Judaism. There certain things are misconceptions. One of the most common misconceptions in Judaism, for example, is Tainus Esther, the fast of Esther. Right? Why do we have the fast of Esther? Why is there Tainus Esther? Anybody know? We fast right before Purim. There's Tainus Esther. Why? What? Yes, that's because you know. Right? The misconception is because Esther told the Jews to fast. In the Megillah, we read Esther told the Jews to fast. That's what most people think is Tainus Esther. There's one problem. Esther told the Jews to fast. It was Pesach time. It was for 3 days. All right, I have trouble finding food to eat on Pesach, but I don't fast. Right? There is matzah at the end of the day. Tainus Esther was because they went to battle the day before Purim on the 13th. So then the halacha says, when Jews went to battle, they fasted. And in those days, they probably fasted. Therefore, to commemorate it, we fast. But it's not because of the fast that is mentioned in the Megillah. One of the other misconceptions is Sfiras HaOmer. If you ask the average person, what's Sfiras HaOmer? What do people tell you? Usually, it's a mourning period. Because Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim died. Oh, Sfiras HaOmer? No music. That's what people associate with Sfiras HaOmer. Sfiras HaOmer is not because of Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim died. They happened to die during the Omer period. The Omer is not, by definition, a mourning period. What is the Omer? What is the Omer? The Omer is a command in the Torah, page 682. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amart lehem ki savo el aretz asher nesachem ukitzartem es kitzira v'havesem es Omer reishis kitzirchem es hakohen. You bring the Omer. The Omer is a offering that's brought from barley, and the offering is brought the day after first Yontif of Pesach. And we start counting what's called Sfiras HaOmer, the counting from the time that the Omer sacrifice, which is barley that's brought to the Beis HaMikdash, from the time that this Omer sacrifice is brought, we start counting from Pesach to what? Yeshua's. Okay, so there's a counting of the Omer. It just happens to be that during the Omer period, the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, the 24,000 Talmidim, which the Gemara calls 12,000 pairs of Talmidim, died. And that's why there's a certain mourning period during where some of the people count from the beginning till the Lag BaOmer, and some people count the whole time. Whatever it is, that's where the association, but it's a misconception. Sfiras HaOmer, most people say, Sfiras HaOmer, the mourning period of the Omer. It's not a mourning period. It happens to be that's when they died. Okay. Why are we counting? There are two strange things about the count. We do the Sfiras HaOmer. Now, when you were at school, and you're heading towards the end of school, how did you mention how many days are left?
5 days left.
And then?
4 days left.
And then?
3.
Good. Now, you didn't say, okay, 1 day off the what do you call it? 2 days taken off of our count. You count downwards. 41 days, 17 hours, and 12 minutes to the end of school. Right? 40, right? That's how we did it. 41 days, 40 days, 39 days. All of a sudden over here we're counting between Pesach and Shavuos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever the count is. Okay. I went and saw a good fight in shul. Not a fight, an argument. Because the chazan was the guy who's the chazan went, Hayom Tisha Yamim, and the guy yells out, Eser. Eser Yamim, Shehem Shavuot. That's okay. So then they had him. Now, the guy who yelled it out, is that counted as counting or not? Right? That was one of it's a couple of the big Talmid Chachamim were going at it, and I thought they were going to come to blows. Yes, he could count with the bracha. No, he can't count with the bracha. Is that considered as if you've counted or not? That's why people say, well, it's like if you ask her from wife, when you ask her, what's for supper? Well, last night we had hamburgers. Because last night was 17. How old are you? Well, last year I was 19. Because yesterday was 20 to 13, 14. That's what we talk about yesterday. Okay, that's the joke they made. In any event, not a funny joke. In any event, we count upwards as opposed to counting down towards Shavuos. Why? Why do we count upwards? Why don't we count downwards like we normally count?
We went up levels of condition.
Excellent. Because what we're doing here is it's not a countdown, Yahoo! It's like when they have the first guys who are married. There's Shana Rishona of marriage. And Shana Rishona, the Torah says, you have to gladden your wife during Shana Rishona. You have to pay special attention to her, and you have certain halachas. They have to take care of your wife. So you got these guys, towards the end of Shana Rishona. 12 days left to Shana Rishona, 11, 10, Yahoo! No, we're not, that's not, I'm free! that's not how Shana Rishona works. Shana Rishona is your Sfiras HaOmer. Each day, we're adding another level in our preparation. It's not a countdown like, let's get this over with. It's when you're getting towards, we added another level, 2 days, 3 days. There's a concept of adding of the 48 ways that the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Each day we work on one of those 48 ways. And then on the last day we do the 49th day, we do all of them together. There's a concept like that. What it is a preparation, which begs a different question. Why are we counting from Pesach to Shavuos? Why are we counting? There's a link between Pesach and Shavuos. There's obviously a link. The two are connected. Like Yom Kippur and Sukkot are connected, Pesach and Shavuos are connected. Why are we counting? The answer is, Klal Yisrael got free. On Pesach, we got free from Egypt. Freedom, what kind of freedom was it? Freedom from a physical monarch, right? We were physically in bondage. What was the point of the freedom? In order to take on the commitment of being slaves to spiritually. The only way we could commit ourselves to serve, slaves isn't a good word, servants of God, you can't serve God if you got to serve Paro. So what happened was we got free. But what was the freedom for? The freedom was so that we could get to receive the Torah and take on that commitment to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, a person who goes free and doesn't have a purpose, sometimes you're better off just being in prison. Some guy got out of jail just now in New York. Some guy's been in jail for 24 years, and they reversed it. He was convicted of murder, and the lady who testified against him, somehow she admitted that she wasn't 100% sure that it was him. She was pressured by the FBI to say that it was him. He just got out of prison after 24 years. He got $10.5 million from the city or state of New York. Okay? Now, when a guy goes free, freedom without a target, sometimes you get yourself in trouble. The Torah is telling you it's got to be freedom with a purpose. You know why we're counting? Because it's a reminder that we got out of Egypt with a goal, with a purpose. And when there's no goal, it's like going on vacation. Vacation's great. The first day of vacation is great. The second day is like, okay, what are we doing today? Or what are we going to do? There's no real purpose. It's got to be freedom with a purpose. In the 70s, when they had the Soviet Jewry, so there were rallies, and they had a bumper sticker that said, quoted Moshe Rabbeinu saying to Paro, Shlach et ami, send out my people, let my people go. Those are the famous bumpers. Then the Frum version came out. They added a word, Shlach es ami v'yavduni, that they may serve me. I mean, the goal of getting out wasn't just to get free. The goal is to get free to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, the link between Pesach and Shavuos is in order to show us what the target. Now, I want to show you something. You know that the relationship between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a metaphorical relationship of the husband and the wife. You've heard that? In Shir Hashirim, it's the husband and the wife. Okay. You have the 3 holidays. Pesach is the engagement period. And that's why we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, follow me out to the desert. When a couple gets married, the wife follows the husband. Lech tech acharei b'midbar. Pesach is when the Jewish people, when you find a wife, you choose one. You choose one, and that's the one you get engaged to. You select her. I mean, she has a certain amount of choice, right? But basically, it's you selecting her. That's a joke, by the way. Right? She has no choice. No, she has lots of choice. So you select her. You select. That's what I told you. My wife said something. I said, "Don't criticize my choices. You were one of them." Right? So you select her. Right? And she. Well, that's what I said. And so she. You select her, and she follows you. That's Pesach. That's the engagement period. Shavuos. Remember the medrash that says they held a mountain over the Jewish people? Okay, that mountain represents a chuppah. That's the marriage. Pesach is the halachic engagement, what we call erusin, halachic betrothal. Shavuos is the marriage, so to speak, between God and the Jewish people. And Sukkot is where the couple goes into their home together. Okay, so that's the 3 holidays are linked. It represents the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. There are 49 days between Pesach and Shavuos, which are described in the Torah as being 7 weeks. The Torah calls, you count 49 days, which is 7 weeks. Okay, now, the unit of 7, the Torah could just say count 49 days. We know that it's 7 weeks. Why is Pesach to Shavuos a unit of 7? So if you know anything about the laws of family purity, by Torah law, a woman has to count 7 days before she immerses herself in order to become permissible to her husband. Klal Yisrael, metaphorically the bride, goes through this 7 of purification from Egypt in order to receive the Torah, which is the marriage. The betrothal is Egypt. There's a unit of 7, which is the purification process, what we're working on ourselves during the Sefira period, which is why the original sacrifice during the Sefira period is barley. The Omer is barley. Who eats barley?
Animals.
And health food people, right? But it used to be that clean, pure white bread was the rich man's food in the old days. Nowadays, you pay a dime, you pay through your teeth just to get whole wheat bread, right? But in barley is animal feed, and then on Shavuos, this offering is flour, is pure sifted flour. That means we've gone from, so to speak, animal state, building ourselves up to Shavuos, which is where we are constantly elevating ourselves. That's the theme over here. The theme over here is the idea of the relationship between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we ourselves are going through, as the bride, we are in the purification period right now. Okay, now skip to the end of the Parsha. Perek Chaf Dalid Pasuk Yud Aleph. Then here you have a very, very strange occurrence. So we're going to have to go through this. Pasuk by pasuk, okay? Because a very strange little episode over here. It starts on page 690, last word, and it says like this: Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelis, the son of a Jewish woman, goes out. V'hu ben Ish Mitzri, and he's the son of an Egyptian man. B'soch b'nei Yisrael. Vayinotzu b'machana. They fight in the camp. B'nei Yisrael is the Isha Yisraeli. This son of a Jewish woman and a Jewish man get into a quarrel. Neither of them is named. One of the commentaries say people who quarrel don't deserve to be named. So they're bickering about something. And who is this guy? Who is this Ben Isha Yisraelis? So this goes all the way back to Parsha Shmos. When Moshe Rabbeinu goes out and he sees an Egyptian man hitting a Jew. Why was this Egyptian taskmaster whipping the Jew? Because this Egyptian taskmaster saw the Jewish man's wife and he took a fancy to her. So he went into the house in the middle of the night and he told the Jew to get up and go to work. Then he came back and he violated the man's wife. She thought it was her husband and he came in and she thought it was her husband coming back to the house and he violated her. And as a result, she got pregnant and had this son. So the son came from an Egyptian father and a Jewish mother. Why was he whipping the Jew? Because the next day, the Jew sensed what he had done to his wife, and he made sure to keep the Jew quiet by whipping him. Moshe Rabbeinu comes out, and Moshe Rabbeinu sees that the Egyptian is whipping the Jew. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He kills the Egyptian. Remember, he kills the Egyptian, he buries him in the sand. So it turns out that this blasphemer, who's the son of that mother, who killed his father. Moshe Rabbeinu. It turns out Moshe Rabbeinu killed his father. He's the son. And he was the only Jewish woman. And the reason, the Torah goes on and says, now let's read the next pasuk. Vayikov ben Aisha Yisrael says Hashem. What happened was he tried to pitch his tent in the area where the tribe of Dan was. And they chased him out. They said, listen, you're not part of our Shevet. His mother was from the Shevet, but his father wasn't. So you don't belong here. So he went to court. He went to Beis Din. And in Beis Din said, yeah, you're not part of that Shevet. So he got ticked off. So he blasphemed. Vayikov ben Aisha Yisrael says Hashem. Vayikalel. Vayaviu oso al Moshe. They brought him to Moshe Rabbeinu. V'shem isho Shlomis bas Divri lemate Dan. His mother's name was Shlomis bas Divri from the tribe of Dan. But his father was an Egyptian, so he's not from the tribe of Dan. And his mother's name is Shlomis bas Divri. And the Rashi brings down the Medrash that she's called Shlomis because every time she says shalom, shalom, she's very friendly. I guess what's the word you use? Very outgoing, very bubbly. And what they call bubbly, we call unsneous. Right? That's what we call bubbly. Jewish women are not supposed to be bubbly anywhere except in the home. Right? Outside the home, they're supposed to be restrained, certainly with men. And she was, hi, how are you? She was, so, divri means talkative. Shlomis bas divri. She was always from the word ledaber. She was running her mouth, which, by the way, you see where he gets this tendency from. His mother couldn't control her mouth, and in her son it manifests itself just in a more extreme way. He blasphemes. It's all in the genes. It's all in the genes. That's why my kids are all really good looking. Right? It's all in my gene. It's all in the genes. Right? So what do you call it? Maybe. So v'yesh cholkim. But at the end of the day, it's genetic. The mother's a talker, so the kid's a talker. He just takes it to the extreme. Okay? Now, so they figure out, what are we going to do with this guy? Now, Hashem says to Moshe, and by the way, she's the only one. She's the only one. That's why it says, one guy. There was only one incident like this. All the other Jewish women were tznius. And by the way, one of the Meforshim says, you want to see something remarkable, take a look back at Parshas, what do you call it? Take a look at Parshas, where's the Egel? Kisisa. Take a look at Parshas Kisisa, where they make the golden calf. On page 5, Five, 494. The Al-Sheikh HaKadosh, one of the great commentaries from the 17th, 16th century. So it takes like this. In 5 lines, 6 lines from the top. Where is it? No. Oh, no. This is where Aaron, sorry, go back, go further. Yeah, sorry, on page 498. When Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and he says to Aaron, what happened? And Aaron starts telling the story. So if you look 3 lines from the bottom, Aaron is telling Moshe Rabbeinu what happened. 3 lines from the bottom, 498. Va'omar lahem lemi zahav. Who's got gold? He's sparkle v'itnuli. Take off the gold and give it to me. Va'ashlicheu ba'esh. I chucked the gold into the fire. Va'yetzei ha'egel hazeh. It happened to come out. This was not intentional. I certainly didn't mean to make this. I threw it in and out came this golden calf. Says the Alshich. Take a look at the terminology over here back on 690. First word. Va'yetzei ben isha Yisraelis. A ben isha Yisraelis happened to come out of her. In other words, this was not intentional. This was because the guy violated her. He happened to come out. This was not because of his father. That's Vayetze Yisha Yisraelis. So what do you do with this guy? He blasphemed. What's the punishment for blasphemy, gentlemen? Death. Okay. Look at the pasuk. 5 lines, 7 lines from the bottom, 6 or 7 lines from the top. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Hotzei es ha-mekalel el mechutz lamachane. Take this mekalel out. V'samchu kol hashomi mes yadei amarosh. Everybody should put, whoever heard his blasphemy has to put their hand on his head. V'ragbu also kolay. They have to stone him to death. Who is supposed to be involved in this? Look at the word pasuk. Now be very careful here. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe. Hotzei es ha-mekalel. You take him out. You, Moshe, take him out, and then the people are going, you bring him out, and let the people boo it, and we're going to execute him. And then how do they carry it out? Take a look, skip to the next page. 2 lines from the top. Vayedaber Moshe el bnei Yisrael vayotziu es ha-mekala mechutz lamachane. The Jewish people take him out. What was Moshe told by God? Vayedaber hotzei es ha-mekala. You take him out. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people to take him out. What happened over here? Hashem said, you do it. Okay. So if you take a look back to the top of 692, you should be bothered by a question here. Because if you look at that very first pasuk, it says, Vayotze ben ish Yisraelis ben ish mitzri b'soch ben Yisrael. And then 4 lines from the top, it says, Vayekalel, he curses. Vayaviu also el Moshe, v'shemi mo shlomis bazdifr lemaseh matei dan. Why is that thrown in as an afterthought, who his mother's name is? Why doesn't it say originally? He is the son of a Jew. I would have written, Vayetze ben ish Yisraelis, her name being Shlomis bas Divri. I would have told you then, right then, what her name is. You mentioned the lady, so I would have told you her name. So why is it only at the end of the story, after we find out what he does, and they bring him to Moshe, and his mother's name is Shlomis bas Divri? So the Alshich, I think it's the Alshich, he says, Moshe Rabbeinu had a concern here for a Chil Hashem. We were talking about Chil Hashem earlier. Hashem said, Moshe, I want you to take him out. Moshe Rabbeinu had a concern. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's concern? His concern is this lady's got a big mouth. She's Shlomis bas Divri. That's why the Torah writes it right over there. She's got a big mouth. If I'm involved in this execution, what's she going to say? Sure, Moshe Rabbeinu had a personal vendetta over here. Because Moshe Rabbeinu killed the guy's father. He doesn't like the father, he doesn't like the son. Moshe Rabbeinu's got a personal interest there. She'll make a tumult out of it. Moshe Rabbeinu says, you know what? For the sake of Hashem's honor, I can't do that. We have to know that this execution is because Hashem said so, not because I got nothing against him. Personally, I had to kill his father because his father was a threat. I had nothing against him. But the mother's going to blab. The mother's going to go out blabbing. I can't have the Chil Hashem. I can't let such a Chil Hashem. Vayotziu es ha-mekal. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to do it. Now look at the precision of the pasuk. Vayirgumu also even ubnei Yisrael asu kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. The Bnei Yisrael did as Hashem. They stoned him to death. They did as Hashem commanded Moshe. Why does the Torah throw that in? That means anybody involved in the execution, they were doing it for one reason only. It had nothing to do with personal vendettas. Hashem said to execute him. It had nothing to do with, the commentaries say, nothing to do with personal vendettas, and it had nothing to do with job satisfaction. Sometimes you have people, oh good, finally my chance. I get to stone somebody. Right? There was nobody with sadistic tendencies who was looking to see, I wonder what it's like. They just had, there's an execute, I told you they're going to execute a guy in South Carolina by firing squad. There's a guy in South Carolina who's up for being executed by firing squad. Somehow they can't get the lethal injections to South Carolina. I don't know what the deal is over there. I don't know what's so difficult, put in a car and drive it over from North Carolina. I don't know. The state can't get a hold of lethal injections.
It's cooler.
So that's not why they're doing it. So they have the firing squad. So they have a description of his firing squad. He sits in a chair and 3 guys with rifles. He can't see them, but they get volunteers to do it. Any prison guys, any prison guards volunteering to be on the firing squad? Listen, what happened to you? Right? There's nobody, no volunteers here. This is all because of the tzivui of Hashem. That's what the Torah is emphasizing. Okay, tomorrow we'll start Bahar.